crisis. Last year, the state investigated 102,000 complaints involving neglect and abuse. But is it possible for a family to be cleared of any criminal wrongdoing and still be accused of hurting or even killing a child? Call 6 investigator Rafael Sanchez reports on the allegations that may not go away.
And I noticed she wasn't on the bed. And when I went over there, I started screaming. And I slowly turned her over and started doing the CPR on her. I'll never forget it.
Lynette Finnegan will never forget the day her 14-year-old daughter, Jennifer Salyer, died. The shock was magnified when she and the girl's stepfather, Roman, were accused of killing the teen.
I got terrified. Very, very terrified.
Every year, the Department of Child Services checks out thousands of complaints. In many cases, children deemed to be in danger are removed from their homes. Parents are forced to change lifestyles or behavior to get them back.
Hey, you little Soa.
Jennifer Salyer was born with a heart problem. She grew into a life of blood-thinning medicines, doctor's visits, and a family that treated her like a regular kid. She died in December 2005. A year and a half later, her mother and stepfather were arrested on neglect charges, accused of beating her to death.
They started with the assumption of guilt, and we started with the knowledge of innocence.
This is just a portion of the documents that the family began to gather as they turned their dining room, their living room, into a law office. It was their evidence against the state. The couple turned to the internet pleading for help. They found an attorney in Seattle, Washington, who agreed to take on the case with a local lawyer who challenged the state's actions.
With that power comes great responsibility, but especially this case, that power was abused tremendously.
The state's evidence was overwhelming. Investigators say there was a sign of blunt force trauma to Jennifer's head and multiple signs of internal bleeding. The allegations led authorities to remove Jennifer's 2 younger sisters from their home.
I felt like I opened the door and they shot me. That's the way I feel.
It turns out the evidence against them was not as it appeared. Experts testify that the internal bleeding was caused by her heart medication and the trauma to the head a result of the autopsy. The Pulaski County prosecutor dropped the charges this past November and a judge dismissed the case with prejudice. The couple thought it was all over. But DCS says, despite the court ruling, it will not clear the allegations from the Finnegan's file. The state says, unlike a criminal case, it bases its decision on a preponderance of the evidence.
Preponderance of the evidence is 51%. Do you believe that this occurred? That is, do you tend to believe one thing happened one way just a little bit more than another?
DCS would not discuss specifics, but it believes that there is a substantiated case of neglect against the Finnegans.
Buried her on Christmas Day.
More than 2 years after losing their daughter, the Finnegans find themselves again fighting an avalanche of allegations.
Having experienced it, I would say it is emotional torture.
Historically, parents were unable to fight the state's findings until this past October, when Judge Payne asked lawmakers to change the process. Since then, out of thousands, 140 people have challenged the state. 75 lost but can take their case to court for further appeals. 16 cases have been reversed, and 32 are pending, including that of the Finnegans, who will be appealing. As far as those files, they are expunged after the child turns 24 years old. But the Finnegans believe that their file should be expunged now because of what happened in the criminal case. Right. But this is sort of compared to the O.J. Simpson case, where, as you may recall, he was found not guilty in the criminal case, but in the civil case had to pay. Similar thing
burden of proof is not the same.
So that's how important it is for them to clear their names.
So a lot of families get caught in this situation, and we'll keep following the Finnegan case and tell you what happens over the next couple of weeks.
Thanks for your case, Raphael.